What is going on with spring football down in Coral Gables? Well, we're just about to find out with a wholesome one right here at the Voice of College Football. So lock it on in for the next hour. Just kick back, listen up, and we're going to break it down with a wholesome one. And of course, head on over to his channel as soon as you get done watching this. If you are not familiar, it's the wholesome one, and you need to subscribe right there. Wholesome one, how are we doing today?
We're doing wonderful. We're doing wonderful, man. It's always a great day to be a Cane, and it's a blessing to be able to sit here and speak about those Canes, man. It's going well. It's going well.
Absolutely, it is. And in addition to one of the main goals for any college football team is to come away from spring practice, get those 15 sessions in, improve, definitely develop, but also stay injury free. And now, unfortunately, for the past 2 years, we've had to add the pandemic COVID results to that, which affected D. Wiggins and DeAndre Johnson, but both key factors on the offense and the defense back on the field.
Yes. So this week, I believe it was late last week, D. Wiggs made his return, but this week, DeAndre Johnson made his return. I mean, there's been a lot of questions with the media not being able to be at practice. There's been a lot of questions as to where is DeAndre Johnson? Where is D. Wiggs? And it was released earlier this week in the weekly presser with Coach Manny Diaz that those two players had COVID-19 complications. So you also had 53, who's been doing well at that strong side defensive end spot. He will be competing with DeAndre Johnson on that spot. And the wide receiver position has been just a list of names. It's just been a position. It has not been anyone that wants to stand out, excluding Mike Harley. So D. Wiggs was thrown into that bucket of a bunch of wide receivers waiting to see who peeks their head out first.
Got the wholesome one here to answer your questions and mix it up on Miami football for the next hour. So leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics, anything else right there in the live chat, including Canes fan 305, who jumped in here right away, hoping to get the first question in. And you know what? Your hope is granted. You got it done, Canes fan 305. As he's become known, TVD, Tyler Van Dyke. And then we've got Jake Garcia. And as the wholesome one has outlined the last few weeks, the quarterback room at Miami is so much better than what it's been in the past in regards to depth and talent. When you match these two up, wholesome one, based on what you've seen on tape, of course, we haven't seen him in competition on the field for the Canes yet. Mm-hmm. But based on the huddle tape, based on what you've seen, based on the scouting reports, how would you measure these two?
Man, they're what we need at Miami. You have Tyler Van Dyke, who he's more the cannon arm, working on his accuracy and kind of a quiet leader, as opposed to Jake Garcia, who's accurate, but his arm is a little and he's the vocal leader. But either one of them really helps the QB room at the University of Miami. Like I said, I've been talking for weeks about this, how bad it was. I mean, you had Brad Kyan and you had Kevin Olsen, DiBiase, and Vinny Testaverde's son. Like it wasn't anybody that could back up that if we needed in a pinch could ever step in the game, or anybody that could ever push said starter, or could ever push to be the second guy for the upcoming year whenever that top-notch guy steps away. It's a blessing in disguise with the injury going on with De'Aaron King, because what's happening right now would be happening a calendar year later in the future once De'Aaron King departs. But this time, now this would be able to hold off next year when it comes to a young man like Ja'Curry Brown, who's the 4-star commit. Now we would be able to say, hey, we know it's a two-man battle. Unless you come in and wow us, you'll be able to take a true red shirt, learn this system, and grow behind the older players in our system. Because, Mark, I have this argument a lot about seniority. Seniority is a problem when the older players do not deserve to be the starters. But it's something that you would want to happen. You want to have a redshirt senior who's, if you will, say a 97 overall, video game-wise. He is very, very good, has a high awareness, understands what he's doing. He knows his playbook. He's a selfless person who's willing to teach the people under him, so that you don't have a redshirt senior who's behind two incoming freshmen And now they have no one to learn from, no one to look to in that room to become better, to grow, not only as a football player, but to grow as a young man, to understand classroom, how to juggle classroom, how to juggle what's going on with your girlfriend, how to juggle your family and juggle this football thing. Because when you get to college, it's no longer just about lining up and playing ball. There's a lot of other intricacies that happen in the game, and that really helps when you have a senior-led or older team that is selfless and that is willing to hand down that leadership to the young men who are part of your program, the younger players, your freshmen, your sophomores, your redshirt freshmen, your scout team players. So you need someone to continuously hand off that baton. But it's different when the older players aren't the best players and they don't even really contribute. Now you have freshmen who walk in and they're just like, oh, yeah, I'm the man. Whatever I'm doing is good enough because y'all can't beat me. And that's what I think was happening a lot at Miami. So it's not necessarily what's going on in the QB room. And that's what I'm happy about, is that these young men get a chance to battle it out. We all know if De'Aaron King is healthy, he's starting that first game of the season, and he'll most likely go the entire season as our starter. But being able to build up the young men behind him, he's even taking on a role as like the assistant QB coach, Mark. Anytime one of these young men make a mistake, they come to the side. He's the first person when they make a great play. That's what I'm talking about. Good job. But did you see backside? Your X was wide open, even though you threw the route, the perfect route. Don't forget, you do have that deep route on the backside, and the safety starts to cheat a little over because he knows that you're ignoring over there. So when you come back, I want you to look that way, pump, and throw that bomb on the backside, and it's going to be a touchdown. And that's exactly what happened this past week. That happened to be on the Miami Hurricanes football Instagram. So TVD is he backs up on a play action, and he ends up throwing this back shoulder fade to D Wiggs, and that's how we all know that he was back at practice. And it was from De'Aaron King, who came up and literally told him to play before the drive before. Don't forget that route on the backside. So he pumps the front side, he turns, and he's wide open. You know, that type of stuff, it makes me excited to hear that our young men are so selfless. They're willing to help each other out, because it's not about me being better than you to demean you. It's about the fact that we want everyone on this team to be the absolute best they can, because me being good and Mark, you being good, has nothing to do with any of each other. You could be the best on YouTube with MarkRogersTV, and I could also be the best on YouTube and any other Miami Hurricanes YouTube. We don't have to attack each other to still be great. And I'm happy to see that inside of our program, because it was not always that way.
Absolutely. The comments roll in here and they compliment the wholesome one. And it's not like, wow, why are they complimenting him and not me? Certainly this is his show. He comes in here and breaks it down for us. I love that. That's what I want to see, is him get the spotlight and him get the attention and him get the accolades, because he's doing the work. He's doing the work. I just set him up here, and sometimes I've got something to offer. But, to extend on your point, the way I think about it is, if everything's working correctly in the program, the recruiting, the development of the talent, and then the preparation for the game through the week to get ready for game day, and then the adjustments during the game to win the game as it's required, then you're going to have those upperclassmen, those juniors and seniors who are leading, as you mentioned, the freshmen and the redshirt freshmen. And they are the ones that are supposed to have the work ethic and the knowledge to pass on down. And when you've got your most talented players might be your freshmen, then that's fine. That points to the recruiting, but they shouldn't be the leaders and the hardest workers and the guys with the most knowledge. Then you've got a bit of a problem. You're going to have your exceptions. There's no question about that. At certain individuals are just high level out of the gate, boom, ready to hit the field, and are just freaks across the board.
Absolutely.
Ed Reed, talent and knowledge, boom,
together.
Just got it all.
And that was the thing. I mean, let's be honest. You remember when he was Edward Reed, and he wasn't this big phenomenon. As you can see, he popped on the screen when he did play, but he turned into Ed Reed in 2001. But even in that 2000 team as a junior, he was still, a really good player. He became elite when he came back for that senior season at Miami. And let's continue to be honest. He was a 26th overall pick. All right. And so he grew and kept growing and kept working and never looked down on other folks. And I listened to his public speaking, events also. Ray Lewis is the one that does all the good public speaking, goes out, gets paid $10K to talk for an hour. I would love that one day to run my trap and make $10K. But his has always been through leadership. And that term is thrown around all the time. A leader, just like I had this conversation with someone about friend. Everyone talks about, oh, he's my friend. He's my friend. She's my friend. They're my friend. Do you really know the significance of using that term friend? It's not just throwing an acquaintance or someone where you just know their name. That doesn't mean that you guys are friends. You don't share a relationship. All right. Now, when you talk about a leader, that's also something. Just because someone is older doesn't mean they're a leader. Just because someone has been around the longest doesn't mean they're even experienced. I feel bad using this, but I look at a guy like B.J. Jennings, who was a redshirt junior who had less than 50 career snaps. That means he's just old. That doesn't mean he's experienced. And that's including special teams. So that leadership, man, it doesn't really have a specific definition. It could be different forms of leaders, different types of leaders at different stages of their leadership walk. But you need some form of it. And when you see it, when you hear it, you know it. It's like a great singer. There's some people who can sing. There's some people who can dance. But there is a star. When they stand on that stage and they put it all together, you're like, that is it. That's a star. Michael Jackson, Prince, Beyonce, Whitney, those are stars. I don't mean to sound like Cam because he's the music guy, but it's just sometimes you have it. And coaches could write all type of books and give you all these different fancy definitions. But if you ever listen to some of them at the simplest form, they describe it as something that when you hear it and when you see it, you know what true leadership is. And that's when you get coaches that get super emotional at the end of seasons, no matter how they go, because they know that they're losing that leadership. It's a different special leadership when those older players are walking out of that door. And probably to never come back. It's most likely as a player. And it really hits some of these coaches, man. It really does.
We've got a free Miami mask for everyone. Just head on over to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Get your mask there, 20% off your first purchase if you so choose. Don't have to buy anything, but you get a free mask. Just head on over to voiceofcollegefootball.com. I'll put the banner up here later in the show and just register for free. We get you a coupon code. You get your mask. Everybody, check out the banner here from Ronan. Ronan's just looking out for everyone. He just wants everybody to feel better about themselves. So what you're going to have to do, according to Ronan, and I fully back this, you got to hit the like button. You're going to feel better about yourself. Then you settle in, listen to the Wholesome One, break it down for the next 45 minutes or so. All right. Got a bit of a question here where I understand the vibe, the attitude, the approach here. I'll hear what you have to say. And then I'm going to add my 2 cents to what D is bringing here. Hey, Mark, Wholesome One. As a Miami fan, I feel like this program and fan base won't be able to move forward until they start to focus on their self. Stop worrying about what the future can potentially hold.
Okay. I'm going to take the politically correct route on this one. D, I would love if you could elaborate a little bit more because I think you have a two-parter here. Number one, you're speaking on a fan base, all right? You're speaking on a fan base that's expanded 3 generations. The first generation, they didn't lose a game at home for almost a decade. Okay. The second generation of Miami Hurricanes fans, when they were in high school or early college, they fielded some of the greatest teams in college football history. My generation, that third generation, we're a product of them. Okay, our parents turn on the TV and they're like, that's not the Miami I watched. That's not the U I watched. But to me, when I started watching ball in 2010, it's like, okay, I mean, these guys are pretty good. I mean, they're not natty, worthy, and they're like hometown heroes, but they're nothing. They're not Bama. They're not LSU. They're not, USC or whatever. They're not big time, but they were important to us. They were our guys. These are the guys I went to high school with. These are the guys that I went to these camps with. Like I knew these young men. All right, so just understand you have to be very mindful of what you allow in. I mean, the gateway to the heart is through the eyes and the ears. You got to be careful. I mean, if you're on social media, you have to make sure you understand. I'm on Twitter. Okay, this is based on who I follow. All right, this is based on not really the majority of our fan base, because, man, if I'm being bluntly honest with you, the people who talk the most trash and troll are the ones that get praise on social media, not the people who are spreading facts and breaking it down. Those people only have like 500-600 followers. But the people who come on and troll and badmouth the coaches and badmouth the players, those are the ones with 10, 30,000 retweets and followers. So I would just say be mindful of what you let in, my friend. I don't, my acquaintance. I don't think that you should really let that affect you. When I talk to the fan base, and when the fan base calls into my channel and comment in, it's not really about the future. We all understand that Coach Diaz he's building something. We don't know what it's going to turn out to be, but he's showing us progress year in and year out. He's shown us he's one of the best coaches in the offseason. He's shown us he's willing to reinvigorate his offense and update his defense. Look yourself in the mirror and answer a lot of those tough questions. Personally, I've grown a great respect for him over this last 6 to 8 months as a person, not even as a coach, just as a person with the stuff that he's done. And one of the other things I know, this is really minute, but someone asked him, one of these crazy reporters tried to ask him, like, almost pseudo who he voted for, or if they're like pushing players to vote in a certain direction, and he shut that down instantly. Now, without basically saying it, but they're like, with everything that's going on, and are you talking to players about political? He's like, we sit them down, we give them information to read, we give them facts based on statistics. We're not swinging any way, and we want young men to make their own decisions based on what they view and their beliefs and their family and how they were brought up. And that, to me, it made me grow a great love and respect for Coach Diaz as our helm. Because, I mean, anybody could have answered that question like that, but the way that you knew it was genuine. He wasn't blowing smoke up our behind about it being politically correct. He was basically saying, no, none of that on this. We're not going that route. I'm not pushing any propaganda down anyone's throat. Okay, they're going to make their own decisions. And yes, we encourage them to go vote and use their voice. And that meant a lot.
So what I like about that is just think about when that 18-year-old leaves home and goes to college. What do we say all the time? That head coach and that coaching staff and that position coach for that particular player is an extension of their family.
Absolutely.
That's a relationship. We talk about in recruiting who's winning in facilities and who's got the money and the brand and the image. All that's important, but it also comes down to who is that young man going to connect with that they can believe that they can trust. And they're going to go to the campus with the coaches that they believe that they can trust as football coaches, but also as role models. Mm-hmm. So as an extension there, what I like to hear there is, just like a father, the way I speak to my 24-year-old today is much different than I spoke to him 14 years ago as a 10-year-old, where I basically told him, this is right, this is wrong. But as he got older, he could make his own judgments. But it was still my role to lead him in the right direction, give him the right information. So what I'm hearing out of Manny Diaz is that these are young men. We need to help them make a good decision and give them some thought process on how you evaluate these kind of situations and decisions in your life, not tell them, do this, don't do this. This person's good, this person's bad. No, give them a way to.
Like this is a Miami Hurricane show. It's not a political show, but life is life, and politics is a part of life. So I'm just saying that meant a lot to me, all right, as a Black young man, to hear a coach wasn't trying to push either way. He wasn't trying to promote anything. He just wanted to be able to give them facts, give them certain places where they can get information from if they want to do even more research on. And what he viewed as reliable websites that you can go to get even more information. He was really divulged in that style of conversation because there is life outside of football, which is called the rest of the world. And you need to be rest of the world intelligent just as well as you are football IQ. And like I said, we'll go on to something else, but that meant a lot to me. So D, I hope that I know we kind of went off, probably didn't even really answer your question, sir or madam, but it's I don't think that we are worried about the future. I think you're talking about a Miami Hurricanes fan base that's no longer that way. You're talking about a Miami Hurricanes fan that has learned, the fan base that since Coach Becht has gotten here, we were humble. We had that success. We started smelling ourselves again. We got humbled for 2 years. And on the last 2 seasons, you've seen this fan base we only peaked up a little bit when Clemson, because we were undefeated, doing well on national TV. We thought we were there. We came back down to reality. Then we kind of go on another nice win streak all the way through the rag season almost. And it really humbled us. It made us come down to understand that whatever's brewing is good. It's not great just yet. Hopefully Coach Diaz gets the chance to see that great. Hopefully he's not Moses to where he can't see the land of milk and honey. All right, we don't want to mess up to the point where he can't experience it, because I think he's laying such a great foundation. But, we can go on to something else, but I think all of that had to be said, and that's okay.
Yeah, and to put a capper on what I think Dee was looking for as well, it's most important what the people in that locker room believe and what they, how they trust each other, and again, what they believe. Now, the fan base is the fan base, and they support the program, and they pay the bills ultimately. So is it important what they believe? Yeah, to a certain extent, but you hope that if the heads are screwed on correctly in the locker room and with the coaching staff, starting with the head coach and actually the administration, then that's going to influence the fan base eventually in terms of what are the expectations, what are the standards. We've got a standard of excellence, and you're going to see that in the way we conduct ourselves and in the way we approach practice and games and lifting and film, and everything we do is going to be a standard of excellence. We may not be at a place in our program where we can reach that standard of excellence next season, but you're going to see significant progress towards that.
Right. And that's what you want. Like I said, sometimes you know it when you see it. There were people who saw 2017, and there's people who knew it was full. It wasn't. I don't like using fool's gold because I feel like that's not fair to the young men that went out there and played the way they did. But they saw holes and chinks in the armor. And if we played a team that could hold off our pass rush, could meet our athleticism, maybe Miami would be in trouble. And that's what we had happen those last couple of seasons. But I think what has happened over the last 3 years has not only taught this fan base, not only taught this staff, but it's really helped Coach Diaz understand, and the people that he had to go to make a lot of these changes with the finances to bring in the right coaches, to see, here's how far we've gotten with what you've given me. If you can give me more, I can take us to a whole different level. And if we go 8-4 last year, Miami swings a 9-10 win somewhere in there next year, that's progress. No, it's not the natty. No, it's not the playoffs, but it's progress. And anyone can take 6-7, 8-4, 9-3, 10-2. Sorry, not sorry. That to me shows a great foundation, especially now in the regular season, where we're going to probably get all of our games, hopefully, once COVID has subsided a little bit. So would I be happy? Depends. But for the most part, I would think 9 or 10 would really show, and it would also be, like I said, you know it when you see it. So if I turn on this film and I see a steely-eyed, focused defense that may have given up 2 big plays, I see an offense that may or may not have been having their best day, but we had low penalties. They may or may not be catching the football at a high rate, so we switched to the run game, and now the run game was what was helping us. And then now we go to play action, and we're able to get that pass down the field, and we do trust somebody with the football. It's about how those things get done. It's the context, not the result. It's context.
Somebody once famously said, "You are what your record says you are." I get that. I believe that. Yes. We're not handing out trophies for showing up or anything like that. It's about wins and losses. It's big boy football. Understood. But there's a difference in that team going 8-3, as they did last season, losing those Clemson, North Carolina, and Oklahoma State games, as opposed to if we were sitting here right now and that team had gone 8-3 and they lost on a last-second field goal to Clemson, and they lost on a last-second touchdown pass by Sam Howell with 28 seconds left against North Carolina, and that game was razor thin. If that was the 8-3 instead of the 8-3, that's different, because you're evaluating not just the wins and losses. We know what those are. We can read the scoreboard, but evaluating the level of play against quality competition.
And that's what Miami was missing last year. Miami, for the first time, this is why, and I'm gonna let you get to your thing. This is why it's so important to understand your game plan, to understand your goals, to truly be able to see that vision clearly and make it plain. Because a lot of people wanted one thing out of this team, Mark: W's. That's all they cared about, was the fact that just find a way to win. I don't care if you win by 3, you win by 2, you win by 1. So the narrative was changed. Now, instead of domination, now instead of being tenacious and aggressive, it was a win's a win. And yes, it worked for a while. I think we went on we were a 3-game winning streak. And then after that, we went on like another 5-game winning streak before we ran into UNC, right? So there was a time where the Miami Hurricanes were doing what we asked them to do as a fan base. And I have to say we, because I'm a part of that fan base. I didn't ask for wins to win, but I did ask for W's. I asked for us to win games. We won. Then you turn out to have an ugly 8-4 to where, yeah, any regular year, that's a pretty good schedule.
Let's not cheat your boys, Wholesome One.
What?
8-3.
Oh, you did?
They
Yeah.
played less games last year.
Oh, shoot. You're right. 8-3. You got North Carolina, Clemson, and Oklahoma State. And that was just such a debacle. Even though I know it took a lot out of the team to lose your starting QB. That plays a big part. And some people had this argument of, well, you got to start somewhere. You got to crawl before you can run. You got to learn how to win before you dominate. And you do have a valid point to that viewpoint. To that statement, there is some validity to that. What I'm asking is that we understand the way that we want to go into these games. That's it. How we want to have a true focus to this game plan and a high level of execution in all facets. Offense, defense, special teams. Low penalties is something that penalties irk coaches. I know. Penalties really hurt. And they happen. You're never going to go through an entire season and not have penalties, okay? That's a thing. But you saw towards the end of the Miami Hurricanes season, we really dropped down our penalty yardage. Because early on, we were like 110, 120 yards in penalties. The middle of the season, we started to come down to the 70s in yards. Those last couple of games, we only had like 30 yards in penalties. If that is playing winning football in a certain aspect of the game. Discipline. Playing at that level, we really passed and we were playing winning football in the discipline category. Now, the execution category is something you want to go into also. Because there's no way, Mark, you could have you're winning football in execution, you're winning football in discipline, you're winning football in focus, winning football in football IQ, and you don't win the football game. Now, unless you are a group of 5 playing a top tier FCS team, you can't win in all those other facets of the game and not win on the scoreboard. Like I said, it's context. The outcome is different. Context is important.
Get your Miami mask. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Even if you don't want a mask, just help us build the channel. Help us grow here. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. We launched that site about 6 weeks ago. We're going to have some great stuff there. Register for free at the top of the page. Ronan. Now, I'm not going to start listing names because I'd always leave somebody out. I will say this. There are a group of individuals. There's a large group of individuals, and we appreciate all of you showing up, hitting the like button, contributing in regards to viewing and so forth and so on. But when there's a number of people who take that extra step, they contribute in a number of other ways. They share the videos, they contribute financially. And again, I would not want to go down that list because I don't want to leave anybody off of it. But Ronan is certainly at the top of that list. So Ronan, we appreciate the super chat contribution. There's another one coming in as well that we'll catch up to. So glad to have D. Wiggins back. Nobody breaks up passes quite like number 8. Okay. Join Mark on Patreon. And don't forget to hit the like button. Keep up the great work. Gentlemen, go Canes. And again, on Patreon, 16 cents a day. Please join us for watch parties and exclusive live streams and more there. So we had you on Wholesome One a week ago. So based on what you've seen, what you've heard, everything that's transpired and made its way out of practice, has it been a good week? Such a good week. Who stood out to you?
There's something I want to get to here. And I think that it has to be something that we have to subside. It's made it all the way to like big time shows. ESPN's writing articles on it. 247's writing articles on it. This whole narrative that the Miami Hurricanes have to have a bell cow back. The Miami Hurricanes have to have someone that is he gets all the carries or majority of the carries, right? So this argument has started with Donald Chaney Jr. versus Cam Harris. Jalen Knight has kind of been left out of the conversation, right? Now, you have all these different viewpoints. People that come on and say, Chaney's RB1, and people come in and defend Cam. Cam is in my opinion, does that even matter? Who's technically the starter? Does that truly matter? In a modern day, with a position like wide receiver, positions like wide receiver, cornerback, running back, rotation works well. We don't have to have one person. Like if there's 30 carries, okay, yeah, one could get 12, one gets 8, the other one gets 10, something like that. Let's do it like that, right? Those are all eerily similar numbers. We don't have to bash one of our running backs to uplift the other running back because we want them to start. What I would want is for these coaches to be able to identify our running backs, go game plan week to week, and know which one you want to put in situationally to who's going to succeed. If we're playing a team where a balanced back like Cam Harris would work a lot better, then you start Cam. If you're playing a team that's pretty slow and they love to jam the box, then you put Chaney or Knight out there where they can get busted to the outside and get missing for 60 yards with no problem. But this narrative that it has to be, oh, this guy's RB1 and the other guy's pretty good and that other guy's pretty good. We'll use him whenever we want to, but this is our guy. Why? Why? That's the only thing I probably will ever have such an issue with Coach Rhett Lashley, the way that he said that. As far as he needs a guy, a go-to guy. When we start this season, Mark, we will have 5 4-star running backs. 5 4, all different styles. You have scat backs, you have balance backs, you got power backs. Figure it out. Heck, all of them, if it's 30 carries, all of them can get 10. For all I care, just find ways to put the young men in positions and use them in, whether it's in open space, whether it's a certain blocking scheme, and make sure you're giving them the right calls. Don't call dive up the middle for Cam, but then Chaney gets in and he gets power, or he gets stretch, or he gets read option, or Knighton gets in and Knighton gets the screens, he gets the wheel routes, he gets the ace jets. Cam gets back in, and I would just run Cam right up the middle and have him run straight into the middle linebacker. No. If we're going to make it fair, make it fair. Call the game based on what these young men do well. And whoever has the hot hand, I could understand that. But when we sit down and we're game planning, you're going to be able to say, you know what, that weak side linebacker, I think we can get him if he's able to jump that backside. We're able to press that hole and then bounce it back out. I think we can have a really good play, coach. You get to that down and distant where you see that weak side linebacker kind of weaving. He's breathing hard. He's had to slam down plenty of times. And it's like, all right, Cam, here we go. Come on in, Knight. We need you to get in. I want you to press that hole and boom, hit onto the outside. That's using your players situationally and helping them to succeed. I don't like that narrative, Mark, because it's not about one being over the other. It's not about me bamming down the door for Cam Harris to kick Donald Chaney Jr. down. No, they're all Miami Hurricanes backs. I just want them all to be used in the right way. That's all I'm asking for. I don't care who starts. I don't care who's getting the carries in the fourth quarter. Just put them all in position to succeed, and it'll also help the chemistry and the team camaraderie if they know for a fact that they're all being used in the right way. Not, oh, no, I'm the older player, so you sit behind me. Oh, no, I'm the fan favorite, so no, you sit behind me. None of that crap matters, man. None of that matters. It doesn't.
Mike Williams, thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that, Mike. You're here for us every week, all the time. Thank you so much for that, Mike. More coming in from the live chat, and you'd made a comment in addressing something else that there was basically at this point a list of wide receivers, just kind of a list of guys. Mm-hmm. And Fresh 3542 is maybe asking a question that you're going to be able to address much better after the spring game about the wide receiver rotation.
Yeah, that'll probably be once I'm able to physically see it, because one thing I can say that Coach Diaz has spoken about is that all of the wide receivers, everyone's been able to get first and second team reps. So what that says to me is that they have been mixing and matching and seeing who works well, who matches well at certain downs and distances and in certain periods of the practice, and even on certain days. I mean, heck, Navon Donaldson ran with the twos one day. Coaches do stuff like that just to see how you respond. All right, well, I'm gonna go out here and dominate the guy, the second string D line. I don't really care, because I know for a fact I'm out here to work. Whoever lines up in front of me is just gonna get that business. That's all it is. Wide receiver, you have Harley. Harley's been playing outside. Pope has been playing some slot. Rambo just now getting his stuff together. He's been playing outside and in the slot. Xavier Restrepo has kind of been manning the slot. Michael Redding has been working at that X. So as of right now, you have Harley, Redding, Warsham, and Keyshawn Smith working at that X, at the number one wide receiver. But it's not really anyone having an X, Y, or slot. Everyone's being put all over the field to see what combination of three best helps the Miami Hurricanes.
Pro Day was a couple of weeks ago. Based on anything recent that you've heard in or seen in any mock drafts concerning any high risers or anybody that's who maybe taken a hit after Pro Day?
I hate to use these terms as far as winner or losing, but the winner of the Pro Day was Jalen Phillips. I mean, hold on. I know I couldn't commit this to memory, so I'll go ahead and read this off to you, right? So Jalen Phillips measures out as a legit 6'5", so that's a blessing because, a lot of people I'm 6'5", and they 6'4" and 1/4. No, he's a true 6'5", measured as 260 pounds, 33 1/4 inch arms, 80 3/4 inch wingspan. He had a vertical jump of 36 inches, a broad jump of 10.5, and ran a 4.56 40 with 21 reps on the bench. You match that up with the film that he has, he's shooting up draft boards. He already had an early second, late to mid first round grade. Now it's jumped up to he's going in the teens, somewhere in there. Could be as high as 11, could be as low as like 19 or 20, but that's where Jalen Phillips is. You talk about someone who really looked good physically. Greg Rousseau's physique, man, he was built. The gods grabbed him. Not necessarily Greek ones because he is an African, so I wouldn't say the Greek gods, but he was definitely built by the gods. This dude is 6'6" and a half, 260, 34 3/4 arms. Good God. And then registered one of the longest wingspans, Mark. 83 1/4 inch wingspan. Okay. Let me just off the top of your head. Well, who would you say has some of the longest arms in recent memory of college football? Or not college football, going to the pros, being measured at a pro day or a combine?
Javon Curse from about 20 to 22, 23 years ago comes to mind. Florida Gator who went to the Tennessee Titans, had a huge wingspan. He
was literally the original freak. He was the one that they nicknamed the freak. I mean, he could hold a ruler from pinky to thumb. That isn't even human. How? So give me 1 second here. His wingspan. Because I had one lined up for you. What about a current NFL guy?
Currently in the NFL.
So Javon Curse.
Yeah,
Javon Curse had a 7'3" wingspan, right? So that's about almost 90 inches, 87, 88 inches, right?
Yeah.
What about Jason Pierre-Paul? You would consider him a pretty long guy? Arms-wise?
Yeah. Yeah. I believe.
He had an 81-inch wingspan.
Okay.
Greg Rousseau is almost pushing an 84-inch wingspan. So that's really good for him. Now, I don't know if that translates to you being the greatest of all time, but it helps. It really, really helps with a young man like Greg. Were you about to say something?
Well, no, I was just kicking around great defensive ends, but whether they measure out like that, who knows? I don't remember. Javon Curse just hit me immediately.
7'3". Anyhow, he had a 30-inch vertical jump and a 9.7 broad. He ran a 4.71 40. That's not good. And it is what it is. The young man's film has just so much upside. Someone's going to take a swing on him. And I'm not here to bash my own cane, so I'm going to change the energy towards that. But it really hurt him because he didn't play, and a lot of people were high on him. Dante, what's up, family? Good to see you in the chat, man. Good to see you. It brings a smile to my face. Joy to my heart to see him. But Greg, those are not good numbers at all. But he'll be a pro. Now, he dropped from being a top 15-ish guy. He's moved to that late first round conversation. But I still think somebody will fall in love with him because, Mark, you've studied this game long enough. When you run against really, really good young men, some of these owners, these GMs, they fall in love with you. And Greg's interviews, probably some of the best ever. That young man understands who he is and and what he's from, and he's a great person. And I think somebody is going to fall in love with that young man and pick him. And I'm hoping it's somebody with a really good D-line coach and already some good defensive linemen, because I've seen him mocked to the Packers, and that would be pretty scary to have a guy like that up here in the northern Midwest. So I could see something like that, and that is, in that 20, 30 range in there. So we'll see. We'll see. I hope it's not the Cowgirls, though. I really hope it's not the Cowgirls.
Every front office has its own approach and philosophy, but it is a copycat league, and personnel directors and other people in the front office move from team to team. So most of what they evaluate and the tenets they go by are very similar. So to you, based on, and you love the NFL draft, you follow it closely.
Yeah, I do.
Based on, and this is a very general statement because it depends on position, it depends on the franchise, but when you collect all of it put together, what do you think the split is between evaluation of the tape on game day versus the measurables in the workouts?
Well, first, can we get another comment on here? Because this dude's just been hating on us. I don't need any of that on the screen. If I were to give it a ratio out of 100, Mark, I would say 85-15. Because one needs to be higher than the other, and it's the film. The film needs to be able, when you see a young man's combine, when you see a young man's pro day, it's supposed to validate what you have already seen on film and or make you go, wow, and go back to watch the film to see what you missed. If you see a young man who, if you're able to watch him, you're watching the film, you're like, okay, he's probably like a 4.6, somewhere in there. Let's say a defensive end, because I would think 4.6 is pretty good for a D end. It's not elite, but it's pretty dang good. It's solid. But his 10-yard split is up there. Like he's moving in that 10 yards. He just kind of tails off towards the end. He runs a 4.6. But then you watch the comp, you turn on the film, and he gets a 4.49. He gets a 4.51. And you're like, okay. All right. But then you watch, let's say you go back and watch the film. He goes to the combine and he runs like a 4.71. You're like, so that means him getting off the ball was the best, and what I saw on film is the best that you got going on. That can really make you go down a couple of notches. Defensive backs. This is why I've always felt like, it may not be fair to do one-on-ones at a combine, but I would love to see it. If they did O-line, D-line, I mean, Mark, think about this. They do it at everything else. You go to these rival camps. You go to Under Armour All-America camps, the Adidas camp, all these camps. They do 7-on-7. They do O-line, D-line. Why can't the NFL do one at the combine? Think about what that would change for wide receivers not running on air or running across the field, having to turn your head around and catch the ball from 8 different QBs, throwing it in different ways. What does that tell you about somebody? What if they had to go out there and they're playing up against different coverages? All right. And you pick. So I would even tell you, like, Mark, can you change the comment, Mark? Get this dude off the screen with the negative energy. There we go.
Super chat.
Right. So,
Mr. Prime, thank you.
let's say, for example, you take the number 1 and number 2 overall pick. Similar how you do with the game at the Reese Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Usually really low organizations, really meaning high in the draft picking, they coach that game so that they can get first-hand pick on some of the best players. It helps them differentiate and see who they want to draft. So I would take the top 4. Number 1 and number 2 get the Reese Senior Bowl. Number 3 and number 4 get the combines. And so their staff gets to go out there and basically run 7-on-7 against each other at the combine. So number 3 plays number 4. So let's say, for example, it's the Chicago Bears and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bears have the 3rd pick, and the Jaguars have the 4th pick. Well, now your DC and your DB coach get to sit there and coach this 7-on-7. Your linebackers, DB coach, and DC gets to coach the 7-on-7 defense. The offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach, they get to coach the offense in a 7-on-7 team. Right? Then your O-line, your D-line coach, and probably your head coach is going to be over there with O-line, D-line. If you're that close, if you're that high up in the combine, they're probably over there with O-line, D-line, because that's who changes the game for you, is the young men up front, then also who's throwing the football, right? So they get a chance to go over there, and now that offensive line coach, that defensive line coach, gets to coach up the young men who are at this combine. Not only does that help the top tier guys, because I guess you can opt out of doing the drills, but that would also make you look pretty bad if you're sitting over there watching the whole time. But if there's like the offensive tackle from Arkansas Pine Bluff, who's now an all-pro left tackle for the Saints, he was at the Reese Senior Bowl, and that's what helped him be able to get drafted and get seen. This, I think, would also help people of those low tier, defense, D3, D2, and FCS, get a chance to see be seen in T-shirt or shorts. Now, I think it would be really cool, man. I think that's something, injury could happen and somebody gets pancaked and tear a shoulder, but somebody could tear a pec when they're benching. Someone could pull a hamstring when they're running a 40. You've been doing this for forever. When you go to these camps, you do O-line, D-line in T-shirt and shorts. You don't do O-line, D-line in helmets and shoulder pads. Okay, so and 7-on-7 has been happening for the longest in games, especially in the generation I was a part of. We've been doing it since 16 years old, all the way through. So I think it would work out really good.
And those were the 2 components I was going to bring up that are the reasons why this is not going to happen. Number 1, the potential for injuries. And number 2, unless you can involve everybody, then it's not fair. Let's say they started this and thought, okay, O-line versus D-line, we don't want those guys getting hurt. They're going to have to hit each other, but we want to do wide receivers against defensive backs. Well, then you're unfairly singling them out as the only players on the field that are competing against each other, for certain players to be somewhat embarrassed and look bad. So you would have to have drills that would involve running backs, linebackers, everything.
Which I think would, like I said, Mark, I understand money is on the line, but money is also on the line.
Sure.
If you go out there and, like I said, Mark, we've been studying college football, which also means we study high school football because that's the transition in. They go to these camps and do that year in and year out. There's some almost year-round. 7-on-7 has turned into AAU, where they go all over the country on flights to play 7-on-7 games. So they would be prepared. Obviously, you're not hitting nobody in 7-on-7, but heck, if you got a flashy wide receiver, this guy's a top 5 pick, and he lines up with the corner from Bethune-Cookman that got invited, and he gets pressed up and clamped, you're going to go, ooh, either you had a bad day today or what's going on? Did you let him get in your head? All that type of stuff. And a lot of it probably won't change how they feel about the prospect, because there's a lot of times in college, you look at D. Wiggs and Mark Pope, they're probably some of the best 7-on-7 high school players of all time. But anybody who watched them play on Friday nights knows that that 7-on-7 stuff didn't translate to what happened on the football field. So there's some people who are football players, and when the pads come on, it's a whole different game, and that's what you really want to judge them by. But this could be 10 years. I could be 10 years before my time with this, but I've always felt like when I watch the combine, I'm like, why the heck am I watching big guys run 40s? I want to watch big guys run into each other. I want to see this big-time offensive tackle have to really kick back. Because, for example, Tyler Lewan and Jadeveon Clowney actually went against each other in that bowl game. But what if they had never had a chance to cross paths? You got the best offensive tackle and the best defensive end in the same building. But what if they're able to, we get the line up. Let's see what you got, Coach, give me a whistle. Boom, first down. You get to see him kick and see what he'll do against a young man who just ran a 4.44. That would be big time. Like I said, I could be way far ahead of my time. But
it'd be fascinating.
I think it could be great.
It would be fascinating. And when I served up, when I served up the question of the percentage of the tape versus the measurements, obviously, the more tape you have, then the more it's reliable. If you just turned out to be a starter sometime in your junior, senior season and had a great run of 8 or 9 games and suddenly flashed on a draft board all of a sudden, that tape, it might be valid, but it's not as valid as the guy that was a 3-year starter that's got 36, 38 games under his belt. Achilles Smith came to mind, and this is fascinating because I actually pulled up his stats. Achilles Smith was a quarterback at Oregon in the late 90s, and he turned out to be, I think, the 6th overall pick to the Bengals and was a complete bust. And just to show you in a certain respect how much college football has changed, and when he left college, there was thought that he just didn't play that much college football. How can we evaluate him properly? But he played 23 games. He played a full season and as a senior and played that back half of his junior season. So he had a lot of tape compared to what these guys have now leaving for the draft early. But at the time, I remember it being a big controversy that Achilles Smith, what do we know about him? He's only been a starter for a year and a half. Well, he threw 45 touchdown passes and 15 picks at Oregon. So he had a nice career for a year and a half, which is a substantial period of time. Now, back then it was like, he wasn't a 3-year starter. We don't have much on him.
And that's why there's a lot of things that I'm just so happy about advancing. I was watching an older game. I watched what many refer to the game of the century with Alabama LSU. The amount of talent on that field and the fact that two of the best teams couldn't get the offensive side of the ball right, that's not good. Yes, it was a good game, but it was actually just a whole bunch of crappy offense and missed field goals. It's not the best game because the defenses were playing great. It's viewed as the best game because our old adage knowledge of good defense, good special teams meant a lot of people ignored one side of the football. And I'm not saying we have to turn it to Oklahoma where it must be a 65-61 game. No. But if there happens to be really good defense against quality coached and schemed offense, that's one thing. But if you're out there and you're playing against a team that couldn't even pass to 50, that also speaks to how bad they are, just as much as it speaks to how good you could have been on defense at the same time. I mean, you have 2 first-round – well, Juice fell to the second round, but they ended up both going on to be Pro Bowlers and at one point all-pro wide receivers. But you had Juice Landry and Odell Beckham, but you couldn't find the right QB because your offense wasn't attractive enough to bring in the right QB. But now that the SEC has recognized offense, oh, man, college football is blown up because it's like the one conference that we were hoping wanted to play three clouds in the dust and 3-4 defense and run the ball, be a man, has now realized that masculinity and running spread has nothing to do with each other. You can go out there and be just as manly out of a spread. It's not soft. It's not gimmicky. It's just called great football.
One of the more dominant teams during the regular season in modern college football history gets a little bit lost, and that's the 2011 LSU Tigers. Yeah, they beat Alabama 9-6 in Tuscaloosa in overtime, as the Wholesome One has explained. That was an ugly game. I remember it well. Ugly game, but just stacked talent on both sides of the ball, especially on defense, but on offense as well. It's like you said, Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. on the same offense. Crazy with Jeremy Hill at running back.
Yep.
A little bit later. I don't know who the starter was right then.
Who was that freshman offensive lineman? Lyle Collins.
Oh,
he was
yeah.
one of the first freshman offensive linemen in LSU history, out there like mauling people. You're like, this dude's a freshman? And he goes off to, be an all-pro for the Cowboys, and you see, like, all right, I see why he was revered as well as he was.
And what made that, and LSU had a remarkable season. If you look at their regular season that year, that was the year that they played Oregon in the opener, the Oregon team that almost won the national championship the year before, and they clocked them pretty good in the opener, and they played that SEC schedule. They beat Alabama, the whole deal. Anyway, they were undefeated going into the BCS championship game. But one of the easiest things to project was the rematch, because Nick Saban had 5 or 6 weeks and his coaching staff, and LSU just didn't have a chance. They didn't cross the 50-yard line until like halfway through the fourth quarter. Like, it was awful.
And I'm going to say this. You know I love Alabama. I really enjoy SEC ball. It's the best ball week in and week out. The only time I would say that they were rivaled, I would say in the mid-2010s when the Big Ten was just starting to – you had Coach Meyer, you had Coach Urban Meyer. You also had Michigan State that was balling at that same time. I mean, yeah, Michigan. They're them. Iowa was rolling. Wisconsin, it was a point where the Big Ten could go like 6 deep, 6, 7, almost 8 deep of 9-win quality football teams. Not like, oh, they just run the ball and play. No. Quality freaking football. It was great to watch. Great. Yet again, Mark, when you turn on the TV, you just know. You're watching it, you're like, you know what? That's a well-coached team. That's a very high-executing team. They might be from Midwestern, wherever, but they have great coaching and they know how to use their players, and I love that. But anyway, I still feel like they shouldn't have been in that game, Mark. That should have been Oklahoma State, LSU.
Oh, you're right. If life was fair.
That wasn't fair, man.
This is how I answered the question.
LSU had already beaten these people, Mark.
Yes.
Had already
and
beaten
Alabama did not have to play. Alabama did not have to play a conference championship game.
How do they get in? That's not.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair. This is how I answered the question at the time. When I walked into work, people know my place of appointment at the time, ESPN. So people are talking about that kind of stuff constantly. When I walked into work the next day, a zillion people asked me, after it was decided, the BCS standings, Alabama, LSU, 1 and 2, did they get it right? Should that be the game? This was my answer. My answer was, if you wanted me to mortgage my house on a wager, I have no doubt that those are the 2 best teams in the country. But we play for a reason.
Yep.
We keep the scoreboard for a reason. And Oklahoma State won their conference, and those 2 other teams already played. So Oklahoma State should be given a shot to play in the game.
It's not like they were in separate conferences and they played a cross-division game. It's like a neutral site ACC SEC kickoff classic, something like that. They're in the same conference, in the same division. This team went into their home stadium and beat them in an away game and had to play them again. That wasn't fair, man. Wasn't fair. Wasn't cool. Wasn't fair. Wasn't cool. And I really love, like I love Alabama. I love Coach Nick Saban, but that wasn't cool. I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of done now, but
yeah,
I'm just happy we have a playoff now, and I hope that. And now it's like expand the playoffs and expand this and expand that. I guess college basketball is what we're supposed to turn into, a 52 team, 56, 64.
Oh, wholesome one. I can change your mind on an 18 playoff, I think.
I'm listening.
Okay. We'll do that sometime. I'm going to change your mind on the 18 playoff. Okay.
So you want to expand?
Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely.
Okay. I would love to, because I remember arguing in your chat years ago about a 16 playoff, and you were like, no, 4 is fine. No. And then now
No. I've never said 4 was fine. Never.
So you've always
you must have misheard me, or I miscommunicated. No, I am definitely been on record forever. Wholesome one. This is how far back I go on this. I wrote a paper in high school in 1984
about a college football playoff.
Yes.
Wow.
In 1984. So I have scads of videos I've posted outlining my playoff system.
And it's always been 8 in your
actually in 1984 I wrote a 16-team playoff.
Okay, wait. Give me a quick.
Oh, no.
Please.
No, I don't think I can do it.
Now my head is going to be rocking for a week as to how this is going to make any sense to me.
Oh, we've got a spring game that we're going to be talking about the next 2 weeks. We're going to be leading into it next week, and then we got to recap it. And then we've got the rest of April. We've got May. We got some dead time coming.
Camp. All right, okay. I'll have my rebuttal nice and ready for you. How about that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, cool.
I look forward to it.
All right,
wholesome one.
Great.
As Louis is pointing out here, there's a reason I run this ticker the entire time at the bottom of the screen. Man, I just think that this would be so easy for everyone to do that shops Amazon, just to use the link that we provide in the description section. It helps us. It's the same exact shopping experience. There you go. We're going to talk more Miami at 7 o'clock Eastern time with Cam Underwood. And we're talking Virginia Tech on a live stream show as well at 8. Virginia Tech Hokies live.
Expansion. Good job, Mark. You found a Vatech guy. That's good.
A couple of Vatech guys that we've had on before, but I noticed that Justin Fuente had his spring practice news conference today, so I thought that there would be a lot to talk about. So,
and they just signed a 3-star QB also, so that'll probably be a part of the conversation. I'm just happy. I'm happy for you, man. More and more people to be able to sit in this spot and talk about the team that they love and be able to reach out to a new fan base. I'm happy for you, and keep it up. And let's get Mark higher and higher, man.
Appreciate that. What was that? A 25-24 game, right? With the Hokies this past year.
Oh yeah. I mean, there'll always be respect between us. I don't have any issues between the two. I think they're healthy. That's a healthy respect relationship. They're never disrespectful to us. We're never disrespectful to them. Now Tallahassee's Tallahassee, but teams like Vatech, UVA, Georgia Tech. I think it's a healthy rivalry, being conference opponents on our own side. Our coaches know each other. Our players know each other. It's not like I'll spit on you, but I'll push you, but I'll help you up. Tallahassee, it's a little different.
We've had something in the range of 2,500 to 3,000 people watching these videos the last few weeks with Wholesome One. And so if you're not subscribed to his channel, please do that. Head on over, Wholesome One Holloway, right here on YouTube. Check it out. Wholesome One, we appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Much love, guys. Have a great one.